Welcome back to the Mark Faris Experience. Now, before we get in the interview, if you are a successful entrepreneur and like investing into real estate and haven't been able to find any good deals in the current climate, go to fulloutinvesting.com where you can learn how we're partnering with investors like yourself to acquire 100-unit apartment buildings into emerging markets into the U.S. and producing 20% annual returns. So go to fulloutinvesting.com. And today, guys, we have a real treat for you. We have Serge Rochon here. He is he's an entrepreneur, super successful guy, and just a real down to earth. I met him at the Barry Home Show, and he is the founder and CEO of Complete Windows and Doors. He built it into a multi-million-dollar organization. He has a phenomenal team of 16, and he actually has a background in kickboxing, MMA, and he's a national champion. And he juggles all of this with being a big giver in the community as well. Serge, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Well, Serge, can we go back to the very beginning and maybe you could talk a little bit about your career in kickboxing and then how you were able to transition from there into being a successful entrepreneur?
Absolutely. So my experience in martial arts started at a very young age. I was about 10 years old. I started karate till about 14 years old. I was a blue belt, almost a brown belt. And then at 14 years old, I started having a little job and got into high school and kind of got off track a little bit. And I believe it was about 26 years old when I started back training in martial arts very heavily. It took me a few years, probably about 4 really, to gain the confidence to compete. And I was a late competitor, I was, 30 years old by the time I started actually competing. And I was able to, in 2014, get the provincial champ award. And a few years later, I went to the nationals and I won the nationals as well. So I did quite a few tournaments, quite a few matches. I was competing both in kickboxing and Muay Thai. Absolutely love the art of 8 limbs. Muay Thai is the ultimate stand-up combat sport, in my opinion. And I even went to Thailand. I competed down in Thailand. I went there just for a training camp. But the Thais, they were like, "Oh, you good? You want to compete?" And I ended up competing there on a very short notice kind of schedule, and ended up winning that fight. And it was a great experience altogether. So all in all, I'm 43 now, so I've been training very heavily for the last 15 years or so into martial arts.
Wow. What's the difference between Muay Thai and say kickboxing? You had said that Muay Thai is kind of like the elite level, or it stands out amongst the others. What's the big difference there?
So Muay Thai has a few more tools that you can use. You can use your elbows and you can use your knees. You can do a little bit of clinch work as well. Whereas kickboxing is generally just kicks and punches. You can throw knees, but it's really just a one knee, and then you have to release your opponent. Whereas Muay Thai, you can essentially clinch and knee an opponent, 10 times if you have the opportunity. As long as you're active in the clinch, the refs won't separate you. So
I would imagine it's probably more dangerous as well if you can use your elbows and knees with Muay Thai. It's like you're coming and you better be ready every single fight, because you get an elbow or a knee to the head. That's much different than padded. Do you have padded gloves? Is that another thing or no?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is padded gloves. When you compete in kickboxing, it's 8-ounce gloves.
Right.
And sometimes in Muay Thai, it'll be smaller gloves as well. So a little bit more vicious there. And for sure, having accessibility to more tools like your elbows and your knees, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. Right on. So, okay, so you had that competitive spirit, and so a little bit of a late bloomer in that, but to be able to compete at that level is pretty phenomenal. How'd you transition that into entrepreneurship? Was there like a moment that you said, okay, I need to transition and, say I have this vision for growing a business, and, what transitioned you into that? Did you have any sort of backstory before jumping into the window industry?
So I was training obviously before I owned my company, but when I first started my company, it was in 2012, and though that was I didn't compete that year, but I competed the following year. So I was already running my business when I
Okay.
was competing. To be doing martial arts and to compete, you have to be very confident, which I took that, and that helped me a lot with starting my own company. It gave me the confidence. If you're going to be competing in martial arts, you can't be afraid of hard work. It's it's a lot of hard work to compete, and it's also a lot of hard work to start your own business and run your own business. It's not for the faint of heart. Running your own organization, it's you got to put in a lot of hours, and I wasn't afraid of that. So that's basically what transpired. I was running my business while I was competing
Yeah.
in your stages.
Yeah, that's good. Serge, I remember back when I played hockey, if we got into a little bit of a tiff with the team from the previous game, I knew I was going to be fighting that next game, especially I played a year in Michigan, and that was a very tough league. And I remember from a training standpoint that it was motivating for me, as in like there was built-in accountability that if I didn't work out, there's a good chance that I'm going to get it will say my head beat in, because I wouldn't be able to, I want to be prepared for the fight. Right. So, in hockey, it was just part of the game, especially, it was a number of years ago as well. But I would imagine for you, it's like when you're going into a fight, if you don't train, if you don't have your head and truly focused going into those fights, you can get really hurt. And so we'll say that skill set of, built-in accountability and the ability to focus and take things serious and working at it, did that help you when you started your business? And maybe you could circle that back to, how you started in business, and, maybe how that tenacity helped you at that early struggle phase.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that's something I tried to instill in my sales team, is that, you don't go into a fight without training for it. So you can't do sales without practice. It's something you have to practice. And you can't practice on a client. You have to practice with your teammates. So you have to role play. We have sales meetings. We do role play. You got to study the softwares to be able to be used to them and not fumble when you're in the presence of a client. So all of that leads back to preparation. Essentially, if you're not prepared, you're setting yourself up for failure. So you got to get in there prepared. And going back to how I got into the business, my uncle had a big role into preparing me for entrepreneurship. When I was a very young kid, my stepdad was an installer, and he was installing for my uncle, which owned a renovation company, primarily focusing on windows and doors. So at a very young age, I was, on job sites with my stepdad, picking up garbage and, learning the essence of installing windows and doors. Out of high school, I went to work for my uncle. He was very successful at what he did, and he was my mentor in a sense. Taught me sales, and I learned the ins and out of installing with him. And I did a lot of canvassing, door-to-door canvassing. So I basically had to start right at the bottom and work my way up, the sales ladder, so to speak. And did a lot of mall shows, home shows, a lot of cold calling. And through that experience, you learn. And eventually I graduated to be a full sales rep. But I was still very young. I was about 20 years old. it was a hard challenge to come across, because when, you're doing home renovations, sometimes you're, $20,000-$30,000 projects, and you're 20 years old and you barely have any facial hair, and you're presenting that price to a couple that's in their 50s. It's a challenging sale to close sometimes. So I definitely had the right mentor there to teach me about, sales and everything. And I'm super grateful that I had that. I call it my schooling. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to university. I went to work for my uncle, and that's where I learned my art, my skills. And, I came out of working for my uncle. I didn't have a school debt. And I had learned a bunch of skills. So that was my getting ready for the real world, essentially. And after that, my brother and I were both working for my uncle, and we both decided it was the right time to move away from my uncle, and we went to work for another window company that manufactured windows and doors and had their own installation department. We worked about 12 years for that company, had great success. And in 2012 is when I decided to start my own company. The company I was working for at the time had some changes that were happening, and we weren't too happy with the changes and whatnot. So it led me to just start my own company. And I started out myself doing everything except the installations. I had a team of installers, but I would do sales, measuring, ordering, production, scheduling. I would do after sales service. And basically that's where it started.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious about your uncle. So he was we'll say your mentor. And for the listeners out there, what kind of, you say, attributes, or what should they look for in a mentor? He obviously did, you learned the foundational truths of the business and would have learned some really good things. What should the listeners look for when they're selecting where they're going to, who they're going to be getting mentored by, and what would be the approach to, we'll say, ask somebody to mentor them? I mean, you had gone and it was more entrepreneurship. So you went and you started in the business to learn it first, and then you were able to branch out. But what are some attributes that the listeners can look for in mentorship, and who they select?
Well, I think you have to look at somebody who's been there before, been where you want to go, which my uncle was obviously there. He was very involved. He with Zig Ziglar, he would involve us. He basically introduced me to Zig Ziglar, the art of closing the sale, reading the right books, having the right mindset, and being organized. He taught me a lot about organization. Every morning he would write his notes of his tasks that he wants to accomplish for that week. So he would always come into the week with a list of items that he wanted to accomplish that week, and very organized and prepared. He would have a good structure with meetings every Monday morning. We'd have, a good structured meetings for the success of that week. And in sales, every day is a new day. You start your day and you basically start with nothing, and your goal is to end the day with a sale. So you every day you got to get out there and go for it and make those contacts. And he was a great mentor to show me that, and relationships, how to nurture them. And I think that, mainly you've got to look for somebody who's been where you want to go.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's an easy one to overlook. And actually how you did it as well is really smart. If you want to learn a business, say you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to start a business, one of the best ways to start a business is to actually go work for another business and to learn how everything is done, and you're getting paid rather than trying to figure it all out on your own. And it's actually costing you money. In a lot of cases, it takes a little bit to get to profitability. So going to work for somebody else first, I think, is one of the best things. And now, it's interesting that you went, instead of the whole college route, and, university, where you go to something generic now for 4 years, and some of these kids are coming out and they're like 80 grand, 100 grand in debt, and they don't have anything that's substantial that is bringing a lot of value to the business that they're applying for. I know, because I see PhDs, MBAs applying to frontline positions in our companies. And it's unfortunate because, although, there was some pretty good experiences, I'm sure, that were learned through university, but it wasn't directly applicable to how they could help me in my business. And so, for yourself, how you were able to just go to work right away, start, and you basically went to the university of that business. And so I think now for young kids coming out, when they ask like what to do, I said, like, go work out there, but find somebody that when you're applying, it's not just for any position. It's like, go find a strong leader to work for and learn as much as you can from them. Because if you do want to do business in that field, that's one of the best ways to start, is to capture all their information and then make the decision if you want to go on your own, like you did.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't misplace the value of experience. It goes a long way when you get that real world experience, or that street smart, so to speak. It goes a long way into nurturing what you want to accomplish.
The shortcuts, right? You can learn from other people's pain, and
a lot, and also, a great book is Who Not How, which is something that I'm starting to realize even more and more now. For the longest time when I was running my business, it was always, I got to do it.
Yeah.
That really stifles your growth if you're going to try to take on everything and do everything yourself. So you sometimes have to start switching your mindset and thinking, well, who's going to be a better person than I am to do this specific task that you're looking at having done. And it's something that I've been trying to do a lot with my business now, is just surround myself with people that are better than me in other areas. I know where I'm great at, but I have my weaknesses, and I'm going to hire for my weaknesses to build that solid team.
That's great. Yeah. Dan Sullivan, Who Not How, the great book. And, to build on your idea there about like who not how, I've heard it once from a business owner that he said, my goal is to be the dumbest in the room when it comes down to my team. That's his goal, to be the dumbest in the room. And actually the story came from Darren Hardy. He's one of my mentors. And so if you haven't heard of Darren Hardy, he's like the modern day Napoleon Hill. And he was interviewing this billionaire CEO, and he was interviewing him, and he was just shocked because he wasn't eloquent. He had like food coming out of his mouth. He was talking with his mouth open, and he's like, tell me, how are you so successful? Like, what's your secret? And he's like, he's talking with his mouth open. He's like, I just surround myself. I just try and be the dumbest in the room. He's like, if I do that, then I'm doing my job right. And Darren was like, oh man, like this mind-blowing kind of idea was thrown out. And I think that is so good what that point is that you had shared, because I think in general in business, you want to have the answers as the owner. You want to be looked at as like the smartest person and, the savior. But actually, if the ideas can come from the team and you can just stimulate them by asking great questions, that when it's their idea, the team is more committed to the delivering whatever the idea is, if it comes from them. And so the best leaders surround themselves with the best people that are actually stronger than them, and they're not we'll say threatened by somebody that's smarter than them. They actually encourage it.
Yeah, and if you go and run and save all of your employees as soon as there's a fire, and you're the one that's going to go put out that fire, you're not teaching anybody anything. So you're again stifling your growth. Your team is actually going to learn a lot more by solving the issue themselves, and they'll be more careful around a similar scenario next time to avoid that situation, or they're just going to grow a lot quicker if you let them, handle their own issues instead of being the savior, so to speak. If you're the smartest guy in the room, yeah, you gotta get the hell out of that room. Because also I truly believe that true growth happens when you're uncomfortable. And you constantly have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to grow, to be better. And if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're going to be very comfortable and you're not going to be growing. So get the hell out of that room, find a more challenging room where you'll feel dumb, and you're going to grow. You're going to learn.
Yeah, there's such wisdom there. What are maybe some tactics that you do to grow and to build your people?
So we do a lot of meetings. I do some ride-alongs with my sales team. I'll do calls with them, and we'll do role playing. We will practice different softwares. In our industry, it's it used to be a price book and pen and paper kind of industry. Not very long ago, it seemed like only 10 years ago it was all pen and paper and price books, and now it's all digitized for the most part. Softwares to do your pricing, and which can have its challenges. It's software can glitch out, and there's lots of updates which you have to learn and relearn the software. So we're constantly training. I mean, I'm focused now on developing people. That's where I need to divide my attention is marketing and the company, and building up my people. So it's just a lot of meetings and a lot of training.
Yeah, that's so powerful. That's actually one of the areas that most businesses, they fail at. It's like, the onboarding is, hey, John, come over here. We have Bill over here. He's new to the company. John, show Bill the ropes. It's like nobody knows what the ropes are, but it's like, show them the ropes. Like, go and like train them, and then John's trying to explain what he thinks the process is, and everybody's kind of like not really sure what the goals are, what's happening, and the training is something that is actually, it's a huge competitive advantage in doubling down on the training side of it, because it's just so overlooked. Actually, there's a case study, I believe it's the Container Store. Their training that's like 3x above or higher than the average in regards to training hours. And so they're very strategic into pouring into their people and training them. And by doing that, they can actually have less people but be more productive, and they can actually pay them more as well. So the training aspect of it, I think that's genius what you're doing, because there are many companies out there that aren't doing it. And so it's hard. It's not easy. I should say it's simple. It's not easy. Right. And so it's spending the time, especially when you get busy, to be able to keep it going as well.
Yeah. And one thing I like to do is, once a week we meet for a meeting, and with the sales team specifically, and we have production meetings and installer meetings as well. But here let's keep it maybe more focused towards sales and marketing. Every week we have a meeting, and I try to look at the past experiences and build on that. So what can we learn from last week? What were your best calls? What were your worst calls? What were things that you shouldn't have done? What are the things that you did wrong that we need to correct? And then of course we have to build the team up to leave on a high note, so that they're motivated to attack the remainder of the week, right? So a lot of leadership stuff, and we're for me it is a newer role that I'm taking on. I was always the top sales rep in my company, and I realized that to really build a successful business that will run without me, I can't be the top sales rep. I have to train my people to be just as good as me or better than me at that role. And I've got many other things that I could focus my attention to, and marketing being probably the most important thing. Any business is really in the sales and marketing business of what they actually do. Whether you sell and install windows and doors, you sell cars, you sell kitchens, your true business is the sales and marketing of that thing that you do.
Yeah.
So I have to spend more time developing sales processes and making it easier for the sales team to be successful, and also marketing the brand.
That's amazing. How did you transition from, so we have a lot of listeners that are, maybe they're self-employed, they're running their own business, they're doing everything. Or maybe they're leading a handful of people, but they're the main sales guy. How did you transition from being that lead sales guy to, okay, now I'm transitioning away from that into the leadership role? How'd you make that transition? And were there any lessons learned you can share with the listeners?
Yeah. So the transition was, I would say, gradual. It slowly evolved. I started by hiring, one sales rep, and then not long after another came, and then we built it up where we now have 5 people on our sales team that are outside sales, and we have a couple of inside sales that specifically deal more with cash and carry. But supply and install, we got 5. But just building it one member at a time, and switching that mindset of I can't run as many appointments as 5 sales reps. So even though I feel that I am the best sales rep in my company, I can run myself to the ground to try to run 4 or 5 estimates a day. But I'll never be able to outperform what 5 guys can do. So I'm better off to train those 5 people, even though sometimes I feel like, oh, I could have maybe closed that sale and you didn't. And that's a hard pill to swallow as an entrepreneur. Yeah. It's something you have to get over, because you got to look at the long haul, and the picture. The bigger picture is that 5 people are always going to outperform what one person can do. So even though they might miss that one call that I would have sold if I would have went and did it myself, it's still a better use of my time to train a sales team and get them out doing.
Yeah.
And the goal is to get them to be as effective as I am, which will come with time.
Yeah.
Some of them already are just as effective as I am. So
yeah. How was that for you? Did you document what was your process of documenting how you do things to be able to train them effectively? Was that just, okay, you have somebody there listening and they're writing down what you're saying, you record what you're saying in front of people, or was it just you late at night kind of writing down and then training them how it's done? What was that process like with the transition?
So our process has pretty much been to just do some ride-alongs, and for long enough, and then once you feel comfortable, still do some ride-along, but we let the person in training kind of lead the conversation. It's something that I would tell any entrepreneur: document your processes sooner than later when you have a business, when you start your business. It is something that I feel here that we're playing a little bit of catch up on. We're documenting processes, we're recording meetings, but we didn't do that at the beginning, and we should have done that a lot sooner. And that would make training and hiring a lot easier when you have your processes documented.
Well, you're already way ahead of the game, and you got the ride-alongs. You're actually watching them do it. A lot of businesses would just send this new sales rep out without any sort of monitoring on that. It was interesting for me when I as I was scaling up the business, was leading the team, but I was still the lead sales guy. I was like doing, looking back, like I was doing 150 home sales a year while leading the team doing 1,000 sales. And I remember, like, I'd go on back to back, like I'd be on 4 listing appointments. I'd be negotiating 8 offers all at once. And it got to the point where we're hitting this ceiling. And I was like, oh man, like what's going on? Like, we were just growing. And then all of a sudden we were hitting like 970 sales. We were hitting 960 the following year. And it was just like this ceiling. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, you know what? The team needs me to transition out of sales, head of sales, and into the CEO role. And that was very hard for me to do that transition. I initially, like you had said, it's good. It's not like an overnight thing. You need to, slowly change it. But first I thought, I'm just going to take on certain listings, just certain clients. And I did that for a little bit. And I realized like the split focus was detrimental. It was not producing the result. And so for me, it was like, okay, no, that's it. I had this one listing. It was a $3.5 million property. And I had that listing, and I continued to hustle. And that was my last one that stayed on. I didn't take one on personally after that. But what I did after was get really clear into, okay, what are the barriers to growth in companies? And then it was exactly what you said. One of them was developing leadership. That was a big one that I was like, okay, that's a big. The second is scalable infrastructure. So making sure our processes are documented, that it's simple enough for people to be able to pick it up, and our CRM's tight. We can grow and scale. And the third one was exactly what you had said as well about is marketing. So a proper marketing function. So lead gen and lead conversion, your ability to generate new business and then to convert. And so that process of transitioning, it was scary because as a lead salesperson, you have to start paying other people to do that. And so our profitability actually we took a step back when I did that. But then after, it was like the first year was like, this isn't going as well as I thought. And the second year, I'm like, I hope these books, like that. I have this, the Scaling Up at Vern Harnish, all these books I have on my desk here. Jim Collins, Good to Great, Implementing a Leadership Team and Implementing Daily Huddles. I started applying all the tools, but Serge, I was like second guessing myself after like year 2. And then it was like, slowly, it was like this, the lock was click, click, click. I'm like, I think I'm getting it. I'm not sure. Am I doing the right thing? Maybe I should go back to sales. And then all of a sudden it was like, bam, we took 2 steps forward. And then we finally broke through, went to 1,400, 1,700 sales. And now what I got from that is that if you copy and proven models, so if you do the research, whatever it is that you want to do, and you just do what the books say to do, and you trust in the process, and you execute with like high amount of, we'll say, massive action, that to me is key. But it's sometimes you got to take a step back before you're able to take 2 steps forward.
Absolutely. I'm in that transition process right now. I'm finding it difficult. I'm enjoying the leadership aspect of it, but I'm still bouncing, back and forth between doing some sales calls, and I come back and I work on the processes, and then it's very hard to do all of that. And I totally get what you've been through. I'm going through it right now. It's definitely challenging. But yeah, I mean, I believe I'm believing in the process. I have faith in the outcome, that the big picture is going to be better off, where, my sales team is going to be trained, and you could really build something that scales when you're not doing everything, and basically try to remove yourself from the operations of the business, because as entrepreneurs, business owners, we go through a lot. There's a lot of early mornings, late nights, working weekends, missed family time, and it's only fair that we get rewarded for that. We take huge risks going into business, and there's a lot that lays on our shoulders, and we support families, your coworkers and your employees, that their children, their wives, so I take it to heart what we do, and I always say my dream is, or my goal is, to have a dream big enough that all of my team's dreams can fit inside of it.
Oh, that's so well said. 100%. And you're right. It is, as an entrepreneur, that's one of the reasons for the channel, is that you can learn from these conversations as an entrepreneur and be able to take some of the lessons, from our conversation and apply in your own business. And, taking risk, that is a thing that we do. Right. And so I think that's 100% needs to be rewarded. And actually you want to make sure that the lessons that you're learning along the way, that you're not having to relearn the same lessons over and over. And like, that's the goal. So one of the things with yourself, Serge, is that when I met you at the home show, is like, you hold yourself really well. And so when you're having the conversations, and even when you're up on stage, there's, speaking and communicating, like, you're passionate about it. And that is one of the things I learned. Strong leadership starts with believing in what it is that you're selling. And when the leader truly believes in it 100%, that's a leader that is like a magnet for other A players that want to be part of that they could follow a leader like that. Because, if you don't believe in what it is that you're selling, no, you're not going to attract the right people, right? You're just, you're going to attract people there that's attracted to just a job or a paycheck, instead of like, what's the mission? What's the mission that we're on? So, from what I've identified, Serge, and in our conversations that we've had, you have that, which is a very strong foundation, I think, for any scaling and growth company.
I think any entrepreneur has to really sit down and think about what the mission is, what their values are, and what the overall vision is, and what your why is. What's your why? If you don't have a solid why, listen, business is going to knock you down. It's going to punch you in the face, and it's going to knock you on your rear end. And, sometimes you'll be able to get up and it'll be easy, and sometimes it'll be tough to get up. If you have a solid why, that's going to be the push that's going to get you to get up when you're really, beat down. And so you need to take that time to think about, why did you start a business to begin with? Mm-hmm. You didn't just start it to have freedom of time, although that's one of the main reasons, of course, is that you want to buy back your time, and you want to have a flexible schedule and all of that. But it can't just be about money. It has to be something a little bit bigger than money. There has to be a big why there. And I think, like, giving back to your community, and having a big dream, big enough that everybody's dream can fit inside of it, so that you can, really build something that you can sustain, families, and they can have their dreams within your organization. I mean, that's a very powerful thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. The discipline side of it, you have a very strong background in discipline. What regular habits or perhaps routine do you do today to help keep you, we'll say, on task and on the right track for your mission and your dream that you've set forth, and from a productivity standpoint?
So I truly believe that taking care of your body is probably the most important thing. I'm still very involved in martial arts and weightlifting, so every morning at 4:30 I'm working out with my neighbor. We usually go till about 6 a.m. So by the time most people are just getting up or whatnot, I've already done a super hard thing in my day. I've already checked off that win box. So I think it's important to wake up and early and do hard things that you can check off a couple of wins right away. If it's a weekday, I'm going to work out first thing in the morning with my neighbor. Then I go home, I shower, have a good healthy breakfast. You got to nourish that body if you're going to be working out very hard. And then I go about my day. If it's the weekend, I'll take it a step further, and I love a sauna and a cold tub. So those are things that for me, for mental clarity and focus, just being active, it goes a long way. So that would be my number one. My number two is going to be, you got to have the right mindset. So, reading books, listening to podcasts, it's done a lot of good for me, for my mindset. As entrepreneurs, sometimes it can be a lonely road. And there are many times where I felt like I was battling this monster by myself. And I have to say, thank God I found podcasts. There's certain podcasts that really helped my mindset tremendously, and is helping me to this day, like to transition to become that leader. I need those podcasts and those books. So those are very, very important. Of course, the support of your family is going to be something that you're going to need behind you. Every good man has a good, solid wife usually behind him, pushing him and driving him. So that's a big plus. Structure, having regular meetings is very important to your success, and keeping that routine in check. You got to go to bed at the same time every night, or roughly around the same time. Wake up at the same time every morning. There's huge benefits to your mental health when you do that. Just having that routine, that regular sleep routine.
Yeah, that's great. I can definitely say through experience, having my wife behind me, there's no way I'd be here if it wasn't for her. Right from the beginning and on. I mean, it's a big part of that success. Huge.
I can say the same thing for me. If it be for my wife behind me, I'm a visionary. I'm very creative. Very good talking with people, but to keep everything organized in the back end, that's all my wife.
Yeah.
So,
well, and not only that, I'd say like probably one of the biggest things is, and you said it earlier in regards to like, it's a tough business, is many nights, and this is the stuff you don't see on, social, Instagram, Facebook, you see like, yeah, just power your way through. It's all good. It's like, rah, you're the, motivation. But the reality is that business is truly, I think, when you come home after getting beat up all day, or there's a couple things that, you're taking some big swings and it didn't work out, and you had, a fallout with another team member, you didn't get that account, you lost, a certain client, and somebody hit you on the way home, your car got dented on the way home, and you go home, you walk in, it's like, that's a tough thing to be able to go to bed and wake up the next morning early and to keep going. And so one of the biggest things for me that's been invaluable is having Joanna there, that, I can tell her what's going on and she'll give me really good insight and discernment and context as well. Before I go and do, like, there's a big decision or what, I'll just run it by her and she'll give some really good context and insight. But that encouragement to say, hey, go back out again, that is like, to have somebody in your world that can do that for you is so valuable. And to have it so that you can, when you need them, they're there for you, I'd say is something that a lot of people don't talk about.
Yeah, I agree. There are many nights I get home and my wife's just an ear for me. She'll let me vent. Always constructive feedback, and always in the mindset of it'll be okay.
Yeah.
It's a huge uplift, and we need that for sure. We need that. It's very good to have.
Yeah. I mean, even as an entrepreneur, when we're super, through the years, I've learned to be more of whereas like before is maybe like 100% optimism. Now it's kind of like, I wouldn't go as low as like 50-50, but I'm getting like 60-40 now in regards to optimism, in regards to, compared to maybe like paranoia, second guess, questioning more so, is like, is this the best approach? But having somebody beside you that is, yeah, go for it, go do it, has been big. Very
Yeah,
cool.
and business gets more complicated the longer you are in business. The bigger the organization gets, the more moving parts you have.
Yeah.
Geez, I remember the first couple of years in business, it was fairly easy, in the sense of, I mean, I had to work hard, obviously, but today when we're managing more people, there's obviously a big reputation to uphold, and it's yeah, man, every decision is more important now that there's so much more people dependent on the right decision being made.
Yeah. Yeah. What we found as we were growing and scaling was one of the biggest things that I was running up against was two big problems. One was communication, and two was accountability. These were massive because what would happen is somebody would have a conversation with somebody else, and then the third person wouldn't, they'd be out of the loop, and then maybe they'd be circled in, but then the fourth and fifth didn't know what was happening. And there's a lot of, we'll say, telephone tag, that game you sit at the table and you tell the next person, and then by the time it gets to the end, it's a completely different message.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was finding in our business. And the other thing was like accountability. People were hiding. And so one of the biggest things that we implemented, that out of all the scaling books, the number one tool that we implemented were daily huddles. And so the daily huddle is like less than 15 minutes. So it's a minute per person pretty much. You can get 15 people on these huddles. And they share their good news from the day before, any update that happened. They share their number one metric, their number one priority for the day, and then any stocks or challenges. And we'd be on a Zoom call, or you can even do it in person if you're in a company. And that was huge because when everybody hears it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, there would be no sort of telephone tag. And then the other thing was accountability. When they have to report on a number every day, I found the best accountability was pure accountability. So as soon as we introduced that, we did a coaches. We have a coaches huddle, which we call our managers, or we don't call them managers, we call them coaches. And then we have, each department has their own huddle. And so we that was the number one thing as we grew in scale, to be able to simplify things, is to be able to introduce that. And that was a game changer for us.
Yeah, I made a note of that. That's very good. I think every business is going to go through that phase where they're going to struggle with accountability and communication. And I think that's a great little bit of information you shared there. I wrote that down. I'm going to try to implement something like that instead of the weekly meetings. Sometimes they just end up being a little more focused on training and
Yeah.
not so much the accountability aspect of it. So yeah, I absolutely love that. There's I've toyed with the idea of implementing performance pay and little structures like that hold people accountable. Obviously, having the right CRM will go a long way too into holding people accountable. Like for instance, we've got this new CRM, which we just transitioned to, which was a lot of work to move to. And this new CRM just has one simple feature task that our tool, you can create to-dos and assign it to other people. So just that alone saves so many things from just slipping through the cracks. Just, sometimes software and systems can definitely help with communication. Teams is a great tool that we use. Again, we have group, a sales group, a production group, a full company group, and we communicate in there a lot. And I think that goes a long way to establish that proper communication that any successful business would need.
Yeah. That's great. Really good insight. Now, entrepreneurs that are listening, maybe they're starting out their business and they have an extra dollar to invest. What investing advice would you give an entrepreneur now that you're further down the path that you would give to maybe an up and coming entrepreneur if they have extra dollars to invest?
I would say, first and foremost, invest in yourself. The power of reading the right books, the right podcasts, so that you can put your brain in the right mindset. That's invaluable. That that's going to be your number one. Number two, I would say if you're just starting out your business, you're going to want to reinvest in the business. Don't take the little bit of money that you made to go buy a boat or a snowmobile or just yet.
Yeah.
Wait that out a little
It's
bit.
coming. Not yet though. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Wait a little bit and maybe put that money towards building your brand, lettering up your vehicles, putting a little bit of a marketing budget on Google or getting your branding right and all of that stuff. Those I would say it start investing time into your processes and your people right away as well. The sooner the better. Don't try to do everything yourself for too long. You'll stifle your growth. And invest in real estate. That would be a very good one. If you are in a position to instead of renting where you're going to operate your business if you're in a position to own that property, jump on that opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
That's going to go a long way into your retirement plan and your future.
Yeah. That's such wisdom there. It's interesting. I ask the question a lot to like really successful entrepreneurs. You know, I'm on the street or I meet somebody and I'm like, what's the number one? He's like, you know what, Mark? He's like, they said exactly what you said. If you can buy the building of the business, they said, what I found was the building was more valuable than the business at the end of my career. Right. So,
yeah, I mean, I know quite a few entrepreneurs that, they exited out of the business and they were very financially secure off the building that they own for 10, 15 years, So, yeah.
Yeah. The tenant's going to be paying the rent, right? If you're the tenant and you're the owner, that's a pretty good bet to take. So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, are you ready for the rapid fire part of the conversation?
Yeah.
We got 3 questions here for you, starting with which book has made the biggest impact on your business as you've been growing?
On my business to say, well, I'd have to say probably the first sales book I ever read, which was a book my uncle made me read, which was How to Close Any Sale from Zig Ziglar.
Mm.
I was very young when I read that book, but that was very open-minding for the sales end of it. The E-Myth was a very good book that I read, and recently the Wealthy Contractor and Elevate. They're 2 books they're not very big books, but very powerful in your what any successful business requires and how to build a team of winners. So the one book, Elevate, is by Tommy Mello. He runs a super successful overhead garage door company in the States. He's I believe in 17 different markets now. They're probably getting close to about 300 million in revenue for a year. So his book was very, very good. It was all focused around building a team of winners and how to elevate your team.
What a great goal to go after. I'm going to build a team of winners.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you say that, because when I interview people, the number one thing, so what I do in my interview is pretty simple. I just say, okay, let's go back to share where you were born. Take me through your school. Share, if you played any sports or if you won any awards along the way through school, right through elementary school, high school, if you went to post-secondary school, and then take me through the roles and the jobs that you had, and share 2 things: any challenges that you overcame and any wins that you had along the way. So challenges that you faced and how you overcame them, and then any wins along the way. It is amazing to see. You can start to see a track record of winning. And so winning doesn't necessarily mean just in their, in the business sense. It can be that they were a national champion. So like for yourself, that'd be like huge check marks. It's like, okay, you know how to win. So, it could be that you bought your house at a young age. It could be that you paid for yourself going to university. So any of those wins along the way, like I'm like writing those down, those wins. And if I can start to see a track record that they know how to win versus a bunch of excuses. Well, I didn't get it because of this, or some blaming and pointing fingers. They know how to win. They're going to figure out how to win with you too. So if you're going to, like, when you're interviewing and you're trying to build that, that's such a great goal to go after. A great pursuit is to build a team of winners. And the best way to do it is to look at their track record and to see, do they know how to win? They're telling you they know how to win. Do they have any set examples that have shown you that they can win and that they are a winner? Because I don't want to bet on somebody that hasn't won in the past that they're going to start changing how they are in the future. And so I think that's a really great goal to go after if you're building a business.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that you should always aim to hire A players. The B players, they can be coached and trained to become A players, and the A players will run circles around the C players. So you you want to try to build a team of A players as much as possible. That'll propel your business to the next level.
Yeah, well said. Well said. All right, how would others describe you in 3 words?
So I asked my team that because I wasn't sure how to answer that one. So the most common ones that came up was determined, visionary, and caring. Visionary because I have focused, hardworking, overachiever, and steadfast were some traits that I have that basically translate to determined. Visionary was I'm inspiring, I'm multidimensional, I have big dreams. And then caring, I'm a fair owner. I really I'm a fair CEO, and I really believe in listening to your team members. When they come to you with an issue, it's you can't just rah and power through it. Sometimes you got to really listen to where they're coming from, and then they really respect you and value you. And I think I've achieved that with my team, but by really just listening and caring and really working with them and being a leader from a position where I'm not sitting behind the desk pointing my finger and say, do this, do that, do this. I'm the kind of guy, I'm the kind of leader that's going to get my hands dirty with them. They value that, they appreciate that, and they respect me for it. And that goes a long way.
Yeah, that's so good. It's good context as well. It's a good question to ask the team. You might think that you're caring, and then they're like, oh no, you're not caring, but you're this, or that's really good insight to be able to ask that question. We did those word puzzles where it shows the bigger words. Like, you ask what's the biggest word that describes that person, and they can kind of do a word puzzle, and the one that was said more often is bigger. And so that was actually similar to what you did. You asked direct, but it's a good thing to ask your team. It's like, and the other thing you could do is how could I actually improve as a leader, and just go into that. You'd be surprised what you'll get, and maybe have them write that down on a piece of paper, not say that out loud in front of everyone. So you can work on it on the side. But that's great. I love that you asked your team. That's perfect. All right, and final question here is, what advice would you give your younger self?
My younger self would be to I would say, document your processes sooner and start hiring for your weaknesses sooner. For too long, I tried to do everything myself, and I truly believe that I could be a little bit further on in my business journey if I had have trusted people sooner and hired for my weaknesses a little bit sooner.
Great advice. So this was a super powerful interview here, Serge, into your background and how you've been able to take, being a national champion into being a champion in the entrepreneurial world, overseeing, 16 people and, growing. And I know this is just the beginning for you. You're doing all the right things here. So if the listeners want to connect with you, maybe they need, they're north of Toronto, or in the GTA area, and they want to replace windows and doors, and they want fantastic service. What's the best way they can reach out?
So you can visit us on our website, which is completewd.com. You can come at our showroom, 53 Churchill Drive in Barrie. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can find me on LinkedIn. Those are all the areas where you're going to be able to find Complete Windows and Doors.
That's great. Well, thanks for coming on the show here, Serge. You did great.
Thank you. I'm happy to have been able to be on the show with you, Mark, and thanks for inviting me. I really enjoyed this. It's a great experience.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to the show. If you liked it, please share and subscribe to the channel, where we are building a community of up-and-coming entrepreneurs. And just remember, the fastest way to build wealth is to grow your business and invest in real estate. I love you guys.